the startup episode.
You have $1 million business idea, but you have very little capital and no business background. Can you succeed? Well, the answer is yes, if you listen attentively to this interview. Hi, this is Eric here, and you're listening to #Highly Sought After. My guests, Solomon Poon and Ryan Foo, founded a company called DrinkAid. They formulated the first alcohol defense against intoxication, flushing, and hangovers. Received a $10,000 funding by their university, launched in August 2020 in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, broke even within 7 days, and now became one of the top 3 products under the detox category of Shopee. Pretty impressive, right? So get ready your favorite alcoholic drink and discover how you too can build a profitable bootstrapped startup in 7 days. Yo! Mate! This is like the first time we have 2 guys on our studio. Like 2 guests, you know? That's pretty cool. Now, I got to give you a little bit of background about how I got to know you guys. So I think your product is very well known. Do you know that? Do you know you guys are very, very well known in the scene, in the drinking scene?
Yeah, that's good to hear. Good to hear.
Because I'm very plugged into the entertainment scene, the drinking scene, right? And every time I go to a bar, a pub, or even now home parties, there will always be one person that will take this out and distribute DrinkAid to us.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome. And that happens a lot. And to top it off, this year's my birthday, I got 10 boxes of DrinkAid as presents.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. So guys, if you want Christmas presents to friends who love like drinking, then you can get DrinkAid. But in my defense, I don't drink a lot these days, right? But I just want to say that when I saw these 2 things happening, I told Ryan, my producer, I said, we need to get you guys on board. Because I think this is truly a sign of being highly sought after, right? Now, so first question. Solomon, nutritionist. Ryan, law graduate. How did you guys meet and how do you end up doing what you do today?
Right. I think we met very early on in SMU when we were in the gym. Yeah.
Gym?
So yeah. So if you tear away all these layers of clothing on Ryan, right?
Yes.
You'll see that he has a monstrous bodybuilder body physique.
Serious?
You know? Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
wow. All right.
You should see his latest photos that he did for New Year. I'm not sure if you saw it.
Yes. I think Neo was doing the brains and brawn, right?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
That one.
His chest muscles was like the biggest out of the 20 guys.
Oh, is it? It's pretty amazing how his co-founder is very excited about promoting Ryan. You know, that really speaks a lot about that dynamics.
And for myself, I used to do some bodybuilding as well.
Okay.
I did some physique competitions, Muscle Mania, Singapore Fitness, Model Search. Yeah. So we had some common interests over there. Then we just met in the gym while training. Okay,
and then I can get why you guys meet in the gym and started talking. But how did this DrinkAid idea come about? Because DrinkAid, it's about, it's a supplement, right? And that, what's it got to do with the gym?
I think that the gym was more of how we met and how we became friends.
Yes.
But how the idea of DrinkAid came about was when I think we were both in our final year in SMU. And knowing that Solomon has really a wealth of experience in the supplement industry, he's a fan of supplements. I think he had a supplement brand before starting our DrinkAid. He had his own fat burner supplement.
Yep.
Yeah. So I approached him with this question. Is there a way that we can reduce the side effects of alcohol consumption? And he said that he might have some answers for me.
And I'm curious, like, Ryan, why that question?
I think personally, early in my uni days, I drink a lot as well. Like I'm one of those students who chiong every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday with my friends.
For those of you who don't know what chiong is, right? Chiong means like you hustle.
Yeah. Hustle in clubs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hustle in clubs.
Cause that was when the old Zouk was still open, and I was very fond of that club. So I used to go and drink every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and then I suffer from very severe Asian flush, yeah. But only recently, I started to experience hangovers, which is weird because I think when you get older, you tend to suffer more side effects of alcohol consumption.
I feel it. Even just with a glass of wine or even a bottle of like a can of beer, I already get a little bit of headache.
Yeah.
Same.
So it's normal, is it?
It's normal.
All right.
Do you get the Asian flush?
Thank God, no.
Okay.
But it's actually a bad thing that you don't have an Asian flush because people will think that you can drink more.
Oh yeah,
I always feel that Asian flush is a very good excuse to say, oh, sorry, I can't drink.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have friends who actually are very embarrassed about their Asian flush. Were you like
Yeah,
super
definitely.
embarrassed?
I think we were more embarrassed in the professional setting because, you know, I think in SMU we have a lot of like networking events, mentorship sessions with industry leaders, and sometimes you have to drink with them, right? And it looks a bit unprofessional on us when like we flush so easily and then they think, wow, this guy can't drink.
Either can't drink or you over drink.
Yeah.
Either way, it's a bad impression, right?
Yeah.
So now go to Solomon, right? So Solomon, he asked $1 million question, right? Can we fix that? And the answer was yes.
Yep.
And then what happened after that?
No, actually, the answer was, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah. But after doing some research, right, I found out that I tried to boil everything down to the molecular mechanism.
Okay.
So what is the root cause of Asian flush and all these hangovers, right? I narrowed it down to this molecule that alcohol breaks down into called acetaldehyde. So our goal, right, should be to find an ingredient profile that breaks down acetaldehyde as quickly as possible, right? And then from some quick cursory glances, I saw that, okay, maybe there's 1 or 2 ingredients that already break down acetaldehyde from scientific research papers. Then about 7 other ingredients in the formula came when I was doing a deep dive.
So they're altogether 9 ingredients.
9 ingredients that help to break down acetaldehyde
Okay,
and
and
overcome alcohol side effects.
So you discovered that, but that was just on paper. Then you do some experiments.
Yeah, definitely. So we got like powders from suppliers, very small amounts, just to
Yes.
test on ourselves. Then we will conduct controlled trials every 2 days on ourselves. We will drink the same can of beer every 2 days.
So you did the
You were all
experiment on
doing-
yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
So cool, right? I mean, since you have to drink anyway, you know, try it on yourself. And then what happened?
Yeah, so we tried different permutations of each because there are 9 ingredients, a lot of permutations.
Correct.
Right. We have to test out every single one and determine what is the best ratio of each ingredient. Yeah. So that process took several months to refine. And once we have the formula, now okay, Ryan, we can proceed already.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that once you found the formula, you went back to Ryan. Why? Like, you are a nutritionist, you are a pro.
Yeah.
Why you can start it on your own? Why Ryan?
Yeah, I think that was the point we decided to apply to the SMU incubator. Yeah, because SMU.
So for those of you who do not know, SMU is Singapore Management University. It's a business university in Singapore, right? Okay.
Yeah. So they were having this incubator scheme for SMU startup owners where they would fund $10,000 if you have a successful business idea and you pitch successfully to them,
Yes.
the panel. Yeah. So we took the next few months to perfect the R&D and to apply for the pitch. Yeah. Then the pitch was comprised of some SMU staff, teachers.
And
So you felt like you
entrepreneurs
need a law graduate to help you to do the
Yeah, and
presentation.
he was the one who gave me the idea in the first place.
You're
right?
so cool, man. You're really cool. You're very cool. You see, ideas are one thing, right? But it's a matter of whether can you execute the
Execute,
idea or not.
execution
And
is very
I
important.
kind of respect that you actually went back here and say, hey, the answer is yes, and let's do something together. Plus, you guys were already friends. So now let's talk about that presentation. Right? I was told there were 100 plus people that applied for it, but you were one of the few that got selected.
Yep.
Could you tell us why? What do you think were your compelling reasons?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that we had a working prototype, right? A working prototype that people liked, and we had photographic evidence that it worked.
Well, tell me more about people like you. So you didn't just experiment on the two of you.
Yeah,
You
I
experimented
let
on your
Ryan
friends.
try it. I let
Yeah,
a few
we-
friends try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We let a few of our friends and family to try our prototype, and then
Yes.
they all had pretty promising results. Yeah, and also during the pitch itself, we prepared some samples for the judges.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
maybe that contributed to
Because they experience it.
yeah.
It seems like that's the commonality so far, because last week we interviewed someone else who also won a very, very big grant with the government actually, because he was able to solve a carbs problem. Remember carbs? Like you take a lot of carbs and then you create a lot of sugar, and actually
Right,
sugar is
right,
bad
right,
for
right,
us. So he was able to create an ingredient, a fiber that actually reduce the harmful effects of sugar, which means you can eat
Alchemy
rice,
food
cake, alchemy.
Alchemy,
Yeah, so Alan. And he said exactly the same thing. He said that one of the reasons why he was able to succeed was because he has a prototype, a workable prototype. So those of you listening to this interview, you have a business idea, don't just go pitch first. Make sure you test it out. We call it a MVP, right?
MVP,
A
yeah.
minimum viable product.
Yes.
Now, Besides having that prototype, what do you think were some of the other reasons that could contribute to you guys getting the grant?
Yeah, I think connections matter. So because we were from SMU, right?
Okay.
And then the SMU incubator not only takes SMU students, but also like elsewhere, all over Singapore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I think one of our success factors was actually reaching out to the staff before the pitch started.
You guys are
getting
smart.
help on the pitch. And that staff, those few staff helped us cut down the pitch from so many slides to just 5 or 6 slides. Yeah. So it was the power of cutting down and making the slides like one slide, 1 point, making it as impactful as possible.
Got it. So 2 things I pick up from you. Networking is very important.
Networking is very important.
So don't just have the idea, but make sure someone else, you are reaching out to the decision makers.
Proactively.
Right. Now, you talk about presentation. Maybe give us a few tips. Like, what do you learn out of it? You said 5 slides, right? So less is more. What else?
Less is more.
I think also if you have a way to visualize the benefits of your product. Like for us, we had a before and after picture of someone suffering from Asian flush.
Yes.
Yeah, and the results were pretty visible because you can see that her face was noticeably less flushed. Yeah, I think that helped as well.
So now, because you said you fight over hangover, intoxication, and also Asian flush, right? Did they question you about like, okay, it worked, but is there a market for it? How do you all answer that question about whether your product has a market?
Yeah, I think for us, we were pretty lucky because when we looked overseas, there was already a market for it in Korea, in Japan, for example. But whereas this wasn't really in Singapore, the most you could find was, for example, those Yukon Japanese pills in Don Don Donki, which weren't even marketed well in Singapore because they just distributed via Don Don Donki.
Yeah.
So we knew that from other countries' experience that there was already a demand for this product. So I think that could be one strategy for your followers to follow, to see what is working elsewhere in other countries, but not in Singapore. They try to
not
bring
in
it
that
over.
country of yours.
Yeah.
I love that.
But I think that there's a caveat in the sense that the people there are more readily acceptable towards this kind of products. Whereas in Singapore, it's still very new.
Yeah.
Like people don't even know that there's such a product called anti-hangover relief.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think once you know that there's a market overseas, then if you market your product well, and you educate your demographic well enough, I think there's a real chance that your product will succeed.
So very cool. So what I'm seeing here is that not only do you have a proven product, but you have a proven market somewhere else as well. And you combine that with a little bit of help, you got your grant.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about dynamics. Okay, it's tough sometimes, right? There's a saying about too many cooks spoil the soup.
Yeah.
Right. So share with us your dynamics.
Well, this was the interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dynamics.
They're looking at each other, waiting for someone to answer the question. And we'll see.
I would say I'm the half of this equation that tries to think about how things will actually plan out and how things will be executed. Whereas Ryan tends to give more of the big ideas. Yeah. So I tend to think about how, operationally, how we're going to do this. Is this even possible? Right? Can this thing be brought here, brought there? Yeah. So this is, I think, where I come from in this dynamic, usually.
I think one simple way to visualize our dynamic is that I think Solomon is the maker and I'm more of the storyteller. Yeah.
Nice.
Because he's the product specialist, right? He formulates the product. He thinks of new product we can branch into. Whereas for me, I handle marketing and PR sometimes.
You guys just remind me of the dynamics of Apple. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, right? One is at the back end creating he's the genius. And then you have a front end guy doing the marketing and telling the story, right? Okay, so that's also a very important point. Now, let's go into the business itself, right? It's very interesting that you all launched on March 20. If I get it right, was it March 2020? It was August 2020, which is actually in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember that all the bars were closed.
Yes.
So tell us what happened.
Well, dude, it was insane. We had originally planned to launch in March.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, but because of the COVID pandemic, the global supply chain was screwed. Right? Even our stuff from Malaysia took 2 months late to arrive. And that was just packaging materials.
What's up with March 2020? Do you know that the Alan's company, right, Alchemy, was also launching in March 2020?
Wow.
Right. Interesting.
Interesting. March 2020, everyone launched, and then this COVID say, hey, hi guys, and plans changed.
It was the worst possible time.
How do y'all feel when that happened, first of all?
Yeah.
we were quite demoralized, but we took things within our strength in a sense that it gave us more time to prepare for our eventual launch in August.
I want to talk about the bounce back because you make it look so easy. Like you were demoralized, but I went to think about plan. How long did that but took?
Definitely 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
We took the time to diversify our supply chain. We look for an alternate supply source for our packaging in Singapore. Because we don't want to be disrupted by this kind of supply shocks in future anymore.
Yeah.
Got it. So you were disappointed, but immediately you went into problem solving mode already.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Wow. Ryan just said that don't waste time, right? How is it not? As an entrepreneur, you know, right, we're going to face a lot of setbacks. I mean, the more we dream, the more disappointment we get. And how do we deal with disappointments and setbacks? Like, do you all have a method to it?
Yeah, I think the key is to always take it in stride and keep progressing no matter what. So you can just look at the disappointment as feedback from external feedback and then see what needs to be changed the next time and then change it the next time.
So you're saying to approach it in a very logical manner.
Logical way. Yeah. I think you can spend, 5 minutes, 10 minutes getting upset over it. That's totally fine. But I think the next step after that would be to ask yourself, what now? Yeah, what can I do about it?
So you say 5 to 10 minutes. Is that true for the both of you? Y'all are just disappointed for 5 to 10 minutes and then you're like, what's next?
I think Ryan saw me ranting a lot about several grants we couldn't get and stuff like that. Yeah.
So the turnaround time took a while, but the key thing is the bounce back.
Definitely.
So what are the challenges you guys face during this period? Like you just mentioned about making sure that your supply chain is not disrupted. Were there other significant challenges?
Yeah, actually last year it wasn't so bad, but this year, right, there was actually during the lockdowns was the worst period for us, right? Because most of the days we didn't even know what to do. I think the worst thing when you're an entrepreneur is you're so lost that you don't even know what to do.
You're talking about the first one, right? The first lockdown, the circuit breaker, right?
Yeah.
Okay, which is the few months when you first launched, right?
Yeah.
So lack of clarity, not knowing what to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, then what do you guys do? Because I mean, the results spoke for itself. You guys did very well.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it? You broke even in 7 days.
For our August launch, actually there was a circumstantial reason behind it because we were coming to the end of our incubation.
Yes.
And to unlock our second tranche of the grant that we were about to receive from SMU, we had to launch our product. Yep. So we just thought, okay lah. I mean, it's now or never, right? So we just
very nice. So actually, sometimes you need a compelling reason at the back.
Yeah.
So what contributed to you guys breaking even?
Right. I would say the biggest reason was being covered by Mothership. Right.
You were on Mothership.
And that was like a giant it started off a giant domino effect that led us to being covered in Vulcan Post.
Okay, so I gotta pause there for those non-Singaporeans. So Mothership is definitely one of the cooler media platforms, right? A lot of young people actually consume their news on the Mothership. Walk us through how you managed to secure the Mothership interview.
Yeah. So I think this is a very huge blind spot for most entrepreneurs because they don't really think about how to do the PR, how to be featured in the media, stuff like that. So what we did at the time was to ask for link ups, connections to this press release company. It was called Press Office at the time, pressoffice.direct. All right. And then how they do it is that we give them like some press releases. They'll vet through for us and then they'll blast it to whoever we think we want to blast it to. Yeah. So it was very lucky for us during that period because of COVID, no businesses were advertising themselves. There was a giant vacuum in the marketing space, right? And therefore, we were the only ones doing the press release and therefore Mothership covered us. Because
and there's no choice because you needed to get a second tranche, right?
Yeah.
But oh my God, that's so beautiful. Like what people think is a setback is actually a setup for your success.
Yeah, it was an opportunity.
That was a silver lining for us, definitely.
So you went for the interview.
Yeah.
And then what happened next? You said that there was some kind of domino effect, right?
Yeah. So we would cover a Mothership. Then after that, Vulcan Post. Then finally Straits
Times approached us as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, so all this media attention drove to your website. I know your website because I order it too. Right? And then that's where people start ordering.
Yeah.
I remember you have 1 box, 3 box, 5 box, some package stuff, right? Okay, so that's how you broke even 7 days.
Yeah, our goal for our incubator, right, was to sell 100 boxes in the first month. We ended up beating that by more than 10 times.
10 times, yeah.
In fact, in your first month, you sold 1,000 units. Yeah. So that's all because of the media attention, right? Yeah. Now, let's. I mean, it's been more than a year already in this business, right? What were some of the other factors that contributed to your success?
I think it's also due to the nature of our supplement.
Yep.
I feel like for most supplements in the market, right, you can't really tell if it works for you because most supplements are preventive in nature.
Yep.
But for DrinkAid, right, the word of mouth effect works especially well because, when DrinkAid works for you, the next thing you do is to tell your friends.
Exactly, because it's a social thing, right?
Yeah, it's a social thing. And it also boils down to how we approach the packaging of a product. Like we envision people sharing DrinkAid with their friends, which is why instead of selling our product in like bottles and maybe in a can, we chose to sell it in a
I'm going to open
form.
one box so that everybody the people on YouTube can see. So those of you listening to us on podcasts, right, I would really recommend you guys to go hop onto our YouTube, just search highly sought after, you'll be able to find us. So where's the screen? Okay, the screen is here. So there you go, the packaging. The packaging is really nice. Talk to us a little bit about packaging. Like why, of course, you're talking about the sachet inside, but why these two colors? Why green and why a bit of a creamy color? Is there a reason?
Yeah, I think we chose green because it reflects the very natural and organic route that we were sort of pursuing for our product line. And we chose that off-white color because it's a bit more interesting than white, but at the same time, it contrasts nicely with the green.
Got it. Oh, I forgot to ask you. DrinkAid. Who came up with this name?
Well, I
can't remember. We had 20 different names and then we shortlisted together.
Yeah, but I think it just snapped because it just sounded good.
Do you mind sharing with us what were some of the other names in that 20? You all still remember? What was some of the crazy names you all came up with?
I have a document on my computer with the shortlist.
Yeah.
Oh my
God. I think we have a shortlist somewhere.
Okay, I'm going to privately get a list of that.
We can share that with
so
you.
you guys were just brainstorming, the two of you. We're just brainstorming different ideas.
Yeah.
But I really think DrinkAid kind of says it all, right? I don't even have to say anything else already. Right? Aid us in our the three big issues.
Yes.
Now, so I get it. And then what's also very interesting is that you actually share the active ingredients.
Yeah.
Isn't that supposed to be proprietary? Like, why were you so confident in putting out all the ingredients here?
I think that's not a big issue because we don't provide the ratios. We don't disclose the ratios.
So the magic is in the proportion, the amount.
In the ratios, yeah.
Okay, for those of you who are curious, right, there is like ginger extract, there is black pepper extract, but I guess overdose of any of those things might kill us or something, right? So you got it at a perfect number.
They're quite safe.
Are they all safe?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just a matter of whether it works or not, right? The efficacy, right? Okay, now, so just now Ryan was saying that I think this is such a brilliant idea because how I got introduced was when someone passed me this. And I'm sorry, I thought like the person was sponsoring me condom.
Yeah.
So I was like, bro, thanks, but like I'm good.
Yeah.
This if you take a look at this really looks like a condom sachet, right? Is that intentional?
I think what we were going for was more of the portability.
Yes.
Which was the case for condoms as well. Because I think for condoms, they want it to be compact enough for you to slip one in your wallet, right? So we had the same idea for DrinkAid, Whenever you want to go out for a heavy night, you can just slip one in your pocket and then you're good to go.
Take one first. Those of you who flush, you take one first and then after that you take again.
Yeah,
right?
depending on your pain points.
And for me, it's if I have hangover, I take it after. Right? So I should be a ambassador.
Yeah.
Which I already am. I already have this. This is actually from my office.
Yeah.
Right? So I hear you about the packaging. Now, were there any after you guys launched, right? And obviously, you did very well. What would you say is your next marketing strategy besides media? Do you have a certain approach to make sure that everybody knows about you besides word of mouth? Is there any other strategies you employ?
I think we're more focused on PR and storytelling in general.
Okay,
like
tell us
we are
more.
not very focused on media buying and Facebook ads for now.
Advertising.
We did that for some
Advertising.
time with some success, but all the success went down the drain during COVID because people are unable to go out to drink. Yeah. So that was a lesson to us that, Facebook marketing can fall flat sometimes when the economy or when the circumstances are not good outside.
Got it. What you're referring to is running ads on Facebook.
Running ads, Instagram,
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work sometimes. Especially during periods where there's 2 packs dine-in or 0 packs dine-in. That's the worst. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Why it doesn't work? That means like you push an ad across, but people will not take.
People will not buy, people will not convert because they simply physically can't go out to drink. They don't need the product.
Got it. Okay.
And our product is pretty complementary to drinking. So if people can't even go out to drink, there's no need for our product.
Yeah, but then that's why I'm very curious, because in spite of COVID, and guess what, we're still in the pandemic, right? It's still from 2 to 5, 5 to 2, you know, it's always like swinging, right?
Yeah.
But your products are doing consistently well. Why is that so? You mentioned something about PR and storytelling.
So I think recently we did this campaign where we focus on the stories of our customers, and I think it's called Made Better with DrinkAid. So basically we interviewed some of our customers who are quite prominent in the social space, like Jade Vasif, the DJ.
Yes.
Andrew Lee as well, who is the CEO of Zook. He's a fan of our product as well.
Awesome. So and you were a fan of Zook in the first place, right?
So it all comes full circle. It's quite interesting. So we got them to share about how DrinkAid has made their lives better, and why would DrinkAid make a difference in their life.
Tell me more about how you came out with this idea. I think that's a brilliant idea, and that's part of storytelling too, right? But how do you came out with this?
I think it was trying to build a stronger social proof around our product, because in terms of startups, right, when customers know the least about you, naturally they want to seek out more information. So if you have credible information about who takes your product, I think that'll be very, very helpful.
Got it. So social proof. But you mentioned the word storytelling. To you, what is telling a good story? Because everybody uses that a lot, right? They say, oh, you got to tell a good story. But what do you mean by that?
I think it's focusing more on the whys. Why are you doing this? Your purpose, your mission in creating these products. Yeah.
And also allowing people to relate to the story. So for example, for the campaign, we use people in the real estate industry who are entrepreneurs, finance, people who take our product. So people who relate with those positions will understand the story better.
Got it. So when you tell a story, people tend to first look at who's the one telling the story.
Yeah.
And if it's similar position or identity, your story has more credibility.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned that within the story, they share about the why, the benefits. So you're putting the benefits into your client's mouth.
That's right.
Got it. Now, so there are a lot of other brands who are also trying to tell stories, right? But some of them fall flat. Why? Why do you think so? Because it's not new knowledge, right? Everybody knows that we need to tell stories. But obviously, you've seen some brands doing that. I won't say the brands, of course. But what could be some of the mistakes that people are making as they tell the stories about their products, about their clients?
I think sometimes it gets a bit fake. Sometimes when you're not genuine about solving a real problem, I think that's where your storytelling kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
I think for us, we had an actual problem that we are solving, and the problem stems from us as well. So it was easier to get the message across. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so I'm seeing from a different angle right now, because earlier the storytelling was clients sharing stories about how they've been successful with your product. But what you're saying is that a deeper level of storytelling is why in the first place you even started this company.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Right? And so it cannot be just for profit, but there must be a compelling reason, a personal reason why you do what you do.
Yeah. I'm of the belief that all founders, most founders have to have this personal reason for why they started the company. It has to have made a huge difference on their lives initially for them to feel something about it, If they don't feel something about it and they just act towards it like a robot, like buying ads and stuff like that, like a machine, they won't be able to feel how customers feel about solving that problem,
This is so beautiful, guys, because you have to understand that we've interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs over these months, and two entrepreneurs came out in my mind. One is Terry Pei, Good Dog People. Asking why he set up the company. He says it's very important to share with people the why. And he says, because I envision a world of good dog people, that people and dogs live harmoniously and they are one, right? It's beautiful. And then, of course, we have Alan that talks about why he came up with Alchemy, because of his grandfather who suffered diabetes. And then you guys personally suffering from the Asian flush.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. This is actually very cool. It's a common pattern, and it's nice to have common pattern, because it means that if we continue doing that, then a lot of us will succeed too. Actually, Jack Ma says the same thing too. Jack Ma says that I want to allow businesses, the people in China, to do business with the world. That's how he started. He did not start a company by saying, I want to be famous, right? Now, let's talk about e-commerce. I know you guys are big on e-commerce, and
definitely.
And you can almost say that thank God for e-commerce, right? And that you had a chance to reach out to the world.
Yes.
So, give us some tips Like what are some of the, maybe mistakes first, what are some of the mistakes that you make as you try to put your product on an e-commerce platform?
Mistakes.
I think a mistake that we did is that we didn't go on platforms earlier, like Shopee and Lazada.
Yeah.
It contributed to a lot of our margins once we are on Shopee and
Yeah,
and
we
Lazada.
should have done that much earlier.
That's true, because I bought your product directly from your website. Now, can I ask you, what's the difference? Like, what's the obvious difference between the pros and cons of putting your product on your platform and putting your product on all these marketplaces?
Yeah, putting your product on your platform or your website basically allows you to control everything, right? The email list, the opt-ins, the user flow, whatever. Whereas if people buy through Shopee, right? Okay, maybe they get a good price because Shopee, some campaigns they give you 12%, 10% of coins back. But you're unable to control the user journey because once they buy through Shopee, you cannot communicate with the customer.
You guys can't reach out? Like, they will not?
Yeah, we can't communicate with the customer.
You don't even
unless
know who
through
bought it.
chats, lor.
Yeah, only through chats.
Yeah, but that's a very weak converting factor. Yeah, so even for customers who check out via Shopee, right, we try to have a lead gen in our every package, like a thank you card that points there back to our
Back to our
website.
email list, yeah.
Smart.
Yes.
Data is very important because it allows you to communicate with your customers, and that's the magic of most direct to consumer businesses.
Yeah.
That database is everything.
Exactly.
This is beautiful. That means you're leveraging on the big marketplaces who have a lot of eyeballs and a lot of budget. You're going there to get the traffic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that at some point you own that traffic.
Yes.
Right? Because now you're essentially, it's kind of free traffic, right?
Yeah,
But you want paid traffic. So what were some of the successful things you did that encouraged people to leave an email address with you or their contact details with you?
Yeah, I think something as simple as a very typical 10%, get a 10% off
For
coupon
future.
code. Yeah, for future
future
orders.
purchase,
Yeah.
So I know now. So discounts will be one. You mentioned also about the thank you card, right? How do you guys keep in touch with your consumers? Like, since you said that, people get to know you from Shopee or Lazada, and then they fill out the email address and then they are in your database now.
Yep.
How do you nurture that relationship?
Yeah, so we just send the emails, updates of them once every week or two on Klaviyo. Klaviyo is an email marketing software similar to MailChimp, but Klaviyo is much better, we think,
Why?
for e-commerce because it allows you to hyper segment your customers. For example, you can do something as very complicated stuff like customers who have opened this campaign and saw it but did not reply or did not click on the link. You can hyper segment like every single thing you can think of. You can split into females, males based on AI. It's pretty cool.
But how does that work? Because it's like I first of all I have to leave my email address to you, right? But you will not know my particulars, right?
Yeah.
Then how would you know I'm a guy or a girl?
AI law. I think they use AI.
You will know your first name, the first name at least, because
So based on that, they extrapolate your
That
gender.
powerful.
yeah, and because of the AI, we know that 55% of our target audience is guys.
Wow. Say that again. How do you spell that?
Yeah, it's KLAVIYO.
We need to take note of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Klaviyo.
And we did not even ask for the particulars of the information of the people who bought from us. We just use some AI software to deduce.
This is super duper cool. And actually that's technology, right? You talk about data is so important, right?
Yeah.
And then you writing those emails. Okay, I hear you. What's next for you guys, man? Like, what's your plans for DrinkAid in the coming years?
But I think a recent campaign that we did that's performing quite well so far, I think, is our wellness partner campaign, basically. So we get bars to partner with us to distribute our product in the physical space. It was also to solve a very real consumer issue because most of our customers, they want DrinkAid urgently, but our shipping and fulfillment takes around 2 or 3 days. So with these wellness partners scattered around Singapore, right, they could get DrinkAid on demand. Yeah.
On the spot.
On the spot.
Basically this is where we consume, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're putting it where the customers are at that moment when they need it.
Yes,
which is why we avoided convenience stores, because when someone is in bar, I think they have a higher purchasing intent because they are already drinking.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. No, I think, if I look at the customer journey, right, by the time I'm in a convenience store, it's a bit too late already.
Yeah.
So where the bar is, where I'm
Exactly.
still sober is where I actually would want to take this.
Yeah.
I think by the time I'm in a convenience store, I'm probably not sober already.
And
So-
we are not competing for attention. Yeah, that's because we are the only supplement product being sold at these bars.
And I like your thinking because you're not really just thinking about standing out or what, but you're really thinking from our point of view.
Definitely,
like you're making it easy for us to buy your stuff, right? By stepping into the stream of that consumer's journey. Okay, so that's one. So we'll expect to see a lot of your DrinkAid in Singapore bars. What about, I mean, we have listeners from other countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Hong Kong. What about them?
Yeah, they can already purchase our product through our website. We are trying to lower shipping costs for customers, because customers in the US are paying, for example, $45 for shipping.
They still buy.
And they still buy. Sometimes they buy one box
So
and then
it's
they pay
very
for shipping.
encouraging.
So one box $19.90, then they pay $45, which is
that is so encouraging.
So we really want to reduce the shipping cost for them
Yes.
by partnering with some 3PL companies.
So it was
the
3PL?
third-party logistics. So basically,
it.
they handle the pack, the pick, and the last mile delivery for
Got
you.
it. So the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry to jump back in again, right? Like, you guys make it so easy. I mean, very effortless, right? But what were some of the future challenges that you guys are dealing with right now? Like, you have great marketing ideas, and now you just highlighted a very big challenge, which is the logistics, right?
The logistics, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think, isn't that the biggest problem these days? Because if you're trying to do business with the world, you need to try to reduce the cost, right?
Yeah,
Of the
yeah,
delivery and even the production.
Yeah. I have to say the Singapore government is quite helpful with this, because on the production side, they do subsidize some equipment that we have purchased. So that allowed us to double our capacity, production capacity. It's called a PSG grant. So guys who qualify for it, entrepreneurs who qualify for it, should look into it. It's an 80% off till next year.
Wow. But what's the criteria?
Criteria is you just have to be a locally
deep tech?
found.
Oh, just locally
PSG,
founded.
you can apply for your laptops and stuff like that as well.
Okay, but guys, please don't abuse it. Otherwise, the rest of us won't get it, right? You know, it happens all the time. People abuse grants.
Definitely.
Okay, so jumping back to the wellness program, so we expect to see you guys in different bars. We also now expect to see you in other countries. Would it be still through the standard marketplace platforms, or people are you're gonna reach out to them directly?
Yeah, I think going forward, we're trying to focus on overseas marketplaces. So for example, the big question right now is, how do we get onto Shopee Hong Kong, Shopee Taiwan, Shopee Brazil, or something like that, right? Because to set up a Shopee or a marketplace account on those marketplaces, right, we have to have a corporate entity in those countries.
I didn't know that. I thought you could just set it up.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we set up companies overseas that allow us to register on overseas marketplaces to sell to those people?
Then you can reach out to those markets, because right now you can only reach out to Singapore.
Yeah. Or partner with enablers who are able to do this for us. Yeah.
Well, okay, let's hope the message goes out and it's a business opportunity, right? It's a great idea. What else are you guys doing?
Currently, the low-hanging fruits for our expansion is the US, because their regulations when it comes to supplement is quite similar to Singapore. So you don't really have to partner with a local entity to sell your supplements there.
Oh, that's why you were saying that you can already reach out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, we are doing some exciting R&D.
Yeah, lots of exciting R&D.
For new
can tell you.
products.
Don't tell us first, right? Because I know you guys, you can see the twinkling in their eyes.
Yeah.
So that means this is not going to be the only product that we are expecting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Have you been doing
start.
experiments on
This
Ryan
only
again?
the start.
Yeah,
I've
this
been
only the
experimenting
start.
on myself first.
Okay,
Yeah.
you look normal. You still okay?
Yeah. I'll test on myself first, then I'll test on Ryan, then we share with a few friends.
Okay, when would that next supplement or next biohack come about?
Yeah, I think that's in Q1 of 2022. Yeah,
Q1. Okay,
basically-
Q1 22. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Basically next year.
next,
Yeah.
which is actually when this episode will be out.
Oh, nice.
So don't worry. Okay, for those of you listening, because we're recording this in 2021, but we will definitely reach out to you guys when you launched it. We'll put it in our show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and
sounds
then
good.
we'll direct them to look at those stuff.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, but make sure you get me some as well, okay?
Definitely.
All right, now, final question. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening in, and we titled this as, how do you turn your $1 million idea into a profitable startup and bootstrapped? What would be individually an advice that you have for entrepreneurs who's listening in? Now that you guys have been an entrepreneur for a while.
Right.
Yeah, I think my advice for entrepreneurs is to to create something that you're passionate about, to something that you really feel strongly about, that you want to see in the world, something you would be willing to sacrifice time. Like for me, I sacrificed jobs. I graduated with a perfect GP from SMU.
Wow,
but
smart boy.
I chose not to go the corporate path because I felt that I could contribute to society in a far better way than I could have if I gone to a corporate job, right? So you have to feel something about this for it to last you your entire journey. Yeah. The second thing is to align yourself with people who are a good support system. So for example, I think people from universities would find good support system in the staff or the
faculty,
right?
The
faculty in charge of entrepreneurship. They are there to help you, right? And even if you have graduated from the university for a long time, they are still willing to help you, right? They're always welcoming you with open arms. So I think the faculty is very important.
Very
alumni,
nice. Alumni.
And alumni community as well, who's willing to help you. Yeah.
Wow. See, so that's a perk of studying in a university or even a polytechnic, because a polytechnic these days, they also have the entrepreneur arm, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, I think what contributed to to a large extent of our success is also luck. And I think from what I've experienced so far, I think you can actually manufacture luck.
Ooh.
By increasing your luck surface area. So basically just putting yourself out there. Because a lot of I think when you are successful, right, a lot of it is when, your luck meets preparation, right? And if you are constantly putting yourself out there, meeting new people, networking, you never know when these networks might come back to prove themselves useful to your business. Because when it comes to a lot of our friends and benefactors now, they are all contacts that either one of us have come across in the course of our life.
And why are they so helpful to help you guys? What is your compelling factor?
I think most of them, they are already fans of our product, so it's much easier to get them to help us.
Wow, I think this is a very short, powerful entrepreneur episode. I feel I don't think this is only just for products, but anybody who wants to start a company, I think this is an episode that you would want to definitely listen again and again so that you can get those ideas across, right? So guys, thank you so much. I wish you guys all the best, and I hope one day, to see you at every bar, not just in Singapore, but every bar in the rest of Southeast Asia and maybe even the world.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. High five, man.
All right.
High five. High five. All right. So there you have it. That's the DrinkAid story. I think I'm super duper inspired by the two of them. There were a lot of things I took away from today's episode, but the one that I really got away that left a very big impact to me is, what is the problem that you're really trying to solve? I think a lot of us, we're always thinking about how to make money, how to make millions of dollars. But first of all, before you think about making $1 million, do you have something that can affect 1 million? Do you have something that can impact so many people? Because ultimately, the amount of money that you make is simply the market's feedback of your value. And that seems to be the common pattern among a lot of successful entrepreneurs that I reach out to, that they have a problem that they feel compelled to solve because they are suffering from that problem too. Right? So don't just look for a problem, but look for a problem that you have a personal stake at, because it allows you to tell a story that's a lot more relatable, a lot more memorable, and it makes people trust you too. And so when you fulfill that, when you solve that problem, you're making the world a much better place as well. So that's the DrinkAid story, and I look forward to see you guys in our next episode. We post this interview once every week on YouTube. So remember to hit the subscribe button, switch on the bell notification, and get yourself some DrinkAid.